Hi, it's Susie from Pink Diamond Guide. How are you? Back with another key concepts idea that, these videos aren't just for twin flames, but they certainly do apply for twin flames. And what I wanted to talk about today was light codes, or light codes are all about parts of us that are yet to be activated, but are part of our DNA blueprint. And it can be a little bit confusing at times to go, all right, we're coming up to an energy portal, such as we've just been through with the 1010. Great time to activate your light codes. And it could be, what the actual is a light code, and what am I supposed to do about activating it? So I wanted to look at this video as part of our ascension journey, particularly for twin flames, is activating light codes. And what are they? How do we activate them? And what is the point of the exercise, particularly in relation to a twin flame journey? It applies to everybody, but for twin flames, we have part of our DNA is part of our light codes is a twin flame light code. So it is important that these codes get activated and we learn what they are, why they need to be activated, and how they serve us. So let's first go, what are they? So essentially, they are part of your DNA system. So it's not something that you have to bring to the party anywhere from outside of yourself. Now, the human body has trillions, and I'm saying trillions of cells, right? And within those cells is, these terms are commonly known. You have DNA. Now, the DNA that we have, if you stretch the DNA out, and you top and tail them next to each other, and you put the DNA that we possess in a line, it would stretch to the sun and back. Get this, to the sun and back, not once, not twice, but 70 times. That's how much DNA the human body possesses, the DNA energy. Now get this for another fact. Of the DNA that we're supposed to possess, to the sun and back 70 times, only 2% of our DNA is activated. So what we're talking about when we're looking at activating light codes is understanding that these light codes are part of our DNA, and by and large, 98% of our DNA remains unactivated. Now, we have, what is familiar to us, the parts of our DNA that we know are activated is our biological process. We can biological, Susie and her spelling again, our biological process. So we understand about the carbon-based biological DNA that gives us our blue eyes and our brown hair and our olive skin, or any and all of the above. But what we're talking about with light codes in our DNA is holding memory to the energetic beings that we are. And these little light code cells, they nestle themselves up against the carbon-based DNA, or the biological that we know and understand, and they're part of the process of being who we are as humans. So imagine, if you will, like we come down to this earth plane and we enact the parts of our DNA that need to enact to make us human, make us think, breathe, act, move, the whole books and dice, right? And then we're going to imagine that our DNA field, let's look at it, let's make it a great big field like this, and remember it spreads all the way to the sun and back 70 times. Within that DNA field, we have these light codes, and I want you to imagine them as like seeds. So perhaps this could be like a paddock, or like a farmer, and within the farm we've got all of these seeds, right? And they're holding the codes for our higher potential and our higher consciousness. But they just sit in the ground, waiting for the right conditions to actually burst forth and become plants. Essentially what we want to do is have all these codes activated until we have, we've grown a garden, till we've got a red hot veggie patch fruiting all of this potential. Like, it's not just a seed anymore. It actually becomes a fruit or a flower, something that is real and tangible up in our 3D world. Now, when we talk about the carbon-based biological DNA, they are the things that you would consciously align with the 3D world, whereas we're looking at light codes as being attached to parts of our being that are less 3D, less tangible. So essentially, in our field that we have, you know, here's Farmer Susie's soil, patch of dirt, paddock farm, and I've come to this planet with these seeds embedded into my DNA, waiting for activation. What kinds of things are going to activate these light codes to help us emerge? How are we going to unlock levels of higher consciousness? Well, each of these seeds are designed to give us access to a new part of the process. And when the right conditions, now this is the thing, a flower, you can put it in the ground, you can put it in the soil, but not give it sunlight, not give it water, not give it nutrition, and it will never grow, it will never plant, it will never sprout. So what we're talking about is the right conditions for these light codes to burst forth and bring fruit and become part of our active energy bodies. It actually becomes part of our life and our lifestyle and the way that we operate and the way that we move forward. But to activate these light codes, we actually need to expose them to the kinds of conditions that will bring forth the fruit from the seed. So we have to, what sort of things can we do to bring that along? Sometimes you meet the right people, i.e. twin flames, right? You go through a twin flame soul ascension process, and you go through the healings of getting to understand what your journey is about, and moving forth on what is the doctrine of twin flames. By and large, an activation process on a light code would start with some process of healing or some process of moving into an internal space for the ideals of growing and moving yourself forward. So these light codes don't activate, I'm going to say sometimes they probably do, but by and large I would suggest that these light codes don't activate on accident. They need care, they need attention, and they need process. The same as if you planted a seed in the ground and you went, I'm just going to cross my fingers that this garden will supply me with fruit if all I ever do is just chuck it in the ground, leave it and grow. Now sometimes those seeds will grow without any care, without any nutrients. Some seeds are super hardy, and some of these light codes will blossom just by the nature of being alive, just by interacting with people, just by bumping into people, right? By the look in another's eyes, sometimes these light codes can activate with, as if they live in the wilds of Borneo, and it's just nature itself that will activate it to birth and grow and bear fruit. Whereas other seeds in the garden will not fruit unless the right conditions are present, right? So the conditions have to be just right for it to sprout and grow and become part of the garden that is cosmically you. So the ones that are going to birth on their own, that's not too much to worry about, is it? It's the ones that we know are going to need those specific environments to move you to the next level of understanding of your higher consciousness that we really want to focus on. So let's say, here it is, the light activation code for the twin flame rests in the field that is your DNA. And this particular light activation code is going to require so many correct conditions for it to fruit into the full capacity of its abilities. Now, along the way, you will pick up other light codes and activate them by default of your twin flame journey, right? So maybe there's you know, they're growing within kui of each other, and the same environments exist to be able to get all of these light codes to sprout. But the initial sprouting of this light code in a twin flame, it's always been part of your DNA, and you might have had trace memories to know that this was going to happen in this lifetime, that you were going to awaken on a soul ascension journey connected to the twin flame process, because this light code was always part of who you are. Now, when you meet your twin flame, or this journey can also be enacted by a karmic or soulmate connection, because they do play out differently, but there is a specific process that will take place that is embedded into these light codes in your DNA that will trigger this twin flame journey. And whenever the conditions become correct for this light code to be activated, it will be activated. It sits and it rests, waiting for the right conditions for understanding to be activated. But it's built into your DNA. It was always meant to happen. Same way these beings will be walking around with light codes in their DNA, waiting for activation. Will they all activate at the same time? No. Generally speaking, the divine feminine of a twin flame journey has these activations take place first. The right conditions exist within the framework of the divine feminine to wake up these light codes. Generally speaking, they wake up first in the divine feminine. Now, on her journey to enlightenment, which is the very reason that these light codes need to wake up, is they're sending us on a path of enlightenment, or we can call it an ascension path, where we're moving towards understanding higher consciousness better. Now, along the way, the key learnings that take place generally speaking, will start with a healing process. So you have the activation, or you have the trigger point. The light codes wake up, and you feel the energy connected to the process waking up. And you might hear people talk about ascension symptoms, or that waking up can cause physical symptoms. Absolutely. So the body can go through like a healing process first, that has to soothe the energy around the being carrying these light codes, before they can move up to waking up another light code, and another light code, and another light code, on your way to higher consciousness enlightenment. Still all clear as mud? Righto. So one of the best metaphors that I think I've heard that gave me understanding is to imagine that one of these seeds is like a raindrop. And like when it's just a raindrop, I'm going to take all these lids off as we go to make this easy. But when it's just a raindrop, you don't really see the potential it has. You don't at the moment. It's just a raindrop, and it's like it's crystal clear, and you can't really see it doing anything. But you apply a force such as something like, let's apply. Do we have a yellow? Oh, let's use this one. Apply a force such as sunlight upon this raindrop, right? You apply light upon this raindrop, and then you get the potential, you get to see its potential for energy. It will create something like a rainbow. So you imagine that that's your little seed of energy that's sitting in your DNA, just waiting for this potential energy to hit. I'm not doing a perfect rainbow here, but you get the picture, that you put that 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, it needs 7. Let's add one more. What have we even got? Come on, Suze, get with it. Right, so like you apply light through a raindrop, and it can produce that rainbow effect. The color can come out with those 7 rays of color that look like a rainbow. So this is how these seeds, or these potential light codes sit within our DNA. They're just sitting, waiting for that activation process to be able to go from that humble raindrop into something that can create, it bursts forward with the color and a rainbow. And every one of these light codes that gets awakened serves you to understand your creation more. So you come into higher levels of understanding and higher levels of awakening the more that you activate. Now, what we're looking at in something like a 1010 portal, and why we suggest meditating under these kinds of energies, like a 1010 portal is understood to be a rush of energy that comes from the cosmos, right? So the energy is intensified with the ideals to bring forth a fresh new start. That's the energetic blueprint of the 1010 portal. We can look into portals more deeply in another session, but what we're looking at this point in time is the light codes that you hold within your body. So the 1010 portal is a perfect time to get into meditation because that energy is amplified coming from the cosmos. But it doesn't mean that you can't spend time at any time really working on developing this, opening up this DNA that's passive. It's living with you, but the bulk of it is passive or not activated. So when getting very, very conscious about the idea of bringing energy through, and if you can imagine, like we've had two analogies there. One that it's a seed in a field of soil where you get the conditions just right. There's nutrition in the soil, there's sunlight, there's water, there's intention, there's all of those great things, right? That will activate the plant, the seed to grow into a plant, and that you get the fruit of that activation. It brings new life, new creation, new purpose. Here we're looking at a different analogy, but the same ideal. You apply the right force against a raindrop and you can, the outcome is a rainbow or this spectrum of color. It's this idea of something sitting dormant as potential, waiting to be lit up. And if you look at that first, we have trillions of cells in the human body that stretch out as far, like to the sun and back. If you stand them top to tail, to the sun and back 70 times, all within your body, waiting for activation. And here, this is what we're talking about. What is the activation? It's a force on latent potential waiting to turn into a new version of itself so that you can live more aligned with enlightenment and higher consciousness. So when I was going through these processes of figuring out what it was to unlock light codes and to download information into, my it's stuff that information will come to me that I shouldn't have known, right? It's like I would have visions and I would, this is, one of the first journals that I kept where I was keeping all these notes of downloads and stuff Spirit was giving me. And it was this one where I was understanding light codes and how it all comes together. And I would get these visions of how energy would move around the body and that how you would have these energetic interactions to awaken the light codes and understand it more. And the information that's given here to me, and I'll recount it so you can see, but essentially what they were explaining to me is that spirit is the one, or that the all and the everything that we know to be the divine energy. Soul is the conduit that ties it all together. The mind is our control center, and the body is the vessel. And within that body, you have the systems of the brain, heart, gut, all of those systems, the DNA included. So what they were showing me with these light code activations and why I could download information that clearly I shouldn't understand. Clearly I hadn't studied it. I hadn't gone to, I shouldn't have known the things that I've known or understood the processes that I've understood. And I would draw them out, I would write them in my little journals like this, and then I would go research them to see if anyone else had come up with the same kind of conclusions. And this idea about light codes activating via this process of deliberately drawing down energy into knowing that the the codes existed in my DNA just waiting for activation. I would get into deliberate meditations, which I'm nearly finished, creating a meditation to share with everybody, which, hopefully by the time I share this information will be done. And you can do that meditation that I would do when I was in these learning phases to actually activate these light codes. If you're interested in sharing my process. But it would literally be sitting in a place, and the first part of the journey would often be a process of healing and clearing the energy. And then it would be actively focusing in on the ideal that these light codes lived like seeds in my system, right? So it was like this connected field of DNA that was living within the system, and then we would activate it to be able to bring down this information. And then once that information was mine, I would go forth, write in my little journal, go forth and research it to edify it out in the real world and make it a very 3D thing versus just something that came to me in a meditation that sounded a little bit crazy at the time. But actually, when I came to research it, other people were getting the same information, so it came to make sense. So I won't go deep into the meditation here in this space, but I will be sharing that with you so that you can follow along the same process if you wish. But essentially the process was clean out the energy, focus in on these light code centers within our DNA, or these seeds of DNA waiting for activation, and then let the information come on through. Spirit would deliver it. The soul would be what tied it all together between the mind, the body, and spirit. Mind was the control center or the processing center, and the body held the brain, the heart, the gut, and these three systems all talk to each other on the regular to make sense of it all and to shift my energy and my DNA to be aligned with higher enlightenment. Righto. Just as Charlie joins us, I'm going to wrap this one up for today, and keep looking at new ideas out of my book to bring forward and share with you on your soul ascension journey. Hopefully this one's been helpful, and till we talk to you next time, in faith, hope and love, it's bye from me for now.